Hello guys, and welcome to Workers and Resources, Soviet Republic, which is one of my favorite city building games. So what's the twist of this game? Well, as the name suggests, you're going to be building a Soviet Republic. And I believe this game is actually made by a very small team of developers from Slovakia, which is my home country. And they're actually using a lot of models that are based on buildings that you would commonly see where I grew up. So there's a little bit of an emotional connection here for me, but overall it's a very fun game. The main thing here, and you will see it as we get into the game, is that the economy works a little bit different and you have to worry about resources a lot and the logistics of where the resources need to be and where they need to get and where they are. There's also a big focus on being self-sufficient as a republic, so over the course of the game, you're encouraged to start building industries and manufacturing your own materials and your own food, but we will get to that as we play. This game actually has two campaigns. I finished the first one and I'm about halfway through the second one. They're okay, could use a few more narrative elements or a little more guidance, but if you are new to the game, it's a good start. They also have a load of tutorials where they go step by step on every important part of the game. But today we're going to be playing a custom game, and we're actually going to be using one of those campaign maps. A new republic is born. And this is one of the first things that I really like about this game. You can go very granular on your difficulty settings. And if you're playing this for the first time, a lot of this is not going to make sense to you. After you play the tutorial, it is going to make a lot more sense. So I'm going to set this up in a not completely hardcore mode, but I'm going to make it difficult. So money amount, that's pretty self-explanatory. It's how much money you have starting out. I prefer the medium setting, but if you really want to make it difficult on yourself, go for the hard setting. All this is going to do is make your initial couple hours of the game go faster or slower. Because if you don't have as much starting money, you have to delay some projects and you have to work a little harder to balance the economy. And that is going to be a major challenge. And we will get to that as we start playing. So realistic mode, I'm going to enable it. And as you can say, you cannot instantly construct buildings and infrastructure. You need to build them manually. And you cannot instantly purchase resources in buildings. What this means is that I need to build a construction office and actually manage the delivery of materials and people and machines to every construction site. That includes buildings, roads, and I also have to manage the logistics of bringing resources where they are needed. And the game actually gives you a couple tools for this, like distribution offices and such, but still, you have to manage it and you have to know where your vehicles are, where you're getting your resources, and creating a balance. We're going to go for reasonable reaction to unsatisfied citizens. Your citizens, they have certain needs: food, education, healthcare, sports, culture. And if those needs don't get met, their morale decreases. And as it decreases, they either try to move somewhere where they can fulfill those needs, or they will actually escape. Next, we're going to keep energy management on disabled. It just generally makes construction a little bit easier. Same for water management, because you actually have to build water pipes and sewers separately, and it gets very messy very quickly. Waste management, I'm going to go for disable, because it doesn't really add a whole lot to the game. All it really does is you have to take out the trash from buildings, and they actually give you a separate building that can do that. And you just buy the dump trucks and they go collect the waste. Through research, you can get into the point where you can recycle some of the waste into scrap or plastic or aluminum, and you can get some resources back from it. That's not really enough to where it would have any reasonable impact. So I'm going to keep that disabled for now. Also, small side note, you can actually change any of this in the game. The note there is that once you do that while the game has already started, you can't get achievements anymore. But this game has so few achievements, I don't think it matters. But we're going to try not to mess with settings on this one. Maintenance, we're going to keep disabled. All that does, it adds a logistics steps, and buildings now have a lifetime and their efficiency decreases, and you need to have a special building that can handle reconstructions. We're going to keep building fires on normal. That means we have to build fire stations, or actually let's disable that, because if you don't have maintenance, it's not going to damage the buildings. Actually, we are going to have normal global events. The reason we want this is if you have global events disabled, the market prices stay the same, because you can import and export stuff from the outside world, and you want that market to change a little bit as you're interacting with it. We will keep pollution on. It adds a very interesting aspect of gameplay with pollution management and having to build factories away from the people, but also close enough to where they can get to work. You will see why. We will do complex education simulation. I think this is the bit that adds a lot of difficulty, because you have to build a ton of buildings to support the entire education system from children all the way to college students. We're not going to have crime and justice because there is no crime in our Soviet Republic. Traffic simulation, we can keep that on simple. The best explanation I can come up with for this is that if you select complex, you can actually build intersections manually, like you could in City Skylines with some of the mods. But generally, the traffic simulation is pretty good. Even on simple, you have to deal with traffic jams and optimize your road construction correctly. And finally, we're going to enable research. So we're going to have to build universities, and universities do research, and that unlocks certain things for us, like steel processing, prefab buildings, that kind of stuff. And that just adds not only more difficulty, but also you have to kind of work around the problem. And then once you have those new buildings, you have to refactor some of your existing construction. And then finally, we're going to do always day. That's just for visual purposes, so I don't have to look in the dark. Vehicles are also a very big part of this game. The developers took really good care with building out the models for the vehicles, and they're all historically accurate with the speed, performance, and the models are very detailed in general. So we want to keep this. Once a vehicle becomes available, you can buy it all the time. We could do this where vehicles are no longer sold after the production date ended, because these are historical vehicles, so we know what was the production era. But I recommend sticking with this, because if you turn this on and you go on for a very long time with this game and you get into like year 2010, that might actually lock you out of pretty much every vehicle. So this is going to mess up the list of vehicles for us a little bit, but don't worry, it's not that terrible. And we're going to do year of start 1960 just to make that vehicle availability a little bit different. And that's it. That's going to be our difficulty settings. If you bully me in the comments enough, I might switch some of these while I'm mid-game just to make it more interesting. But yeah, with that being said, we can go and get started. And I love these loading screen photos. This is, so Košice, it's, well, as the sign says, is one of the major cities, the second largest city in Slovakia. And I think the guy who took this is one of the developers of this game. And he like has historical photos of the city, or well, not historical, but like from, I think they go for like the 80s up to like 2010s that are shown on the loading screens, and I really like that. And we're in. So I've stopped the time so we can look around the map a little bit. And in workers and resources, you have two types of maps. You either have empty maps like this one, or you have maps that are populated. So those will have roads, railways, and towns and cities in them. And you can choose which you want based on the scenario and the difficulty you want to play. Now, where do we want to start building? There are three things that we are looking for our building site. Number one is going to be the proximity of a border checkpoint like this one, because from there we need to import all the goods and all the materials until we can set up our own production. Then we also want a large flat area to build on, and we want some resources. So this place is probably going to have gravel because there's rocks in there, and it's going to have wood. And other resources we're going to discover as we do research. So this is one possible spot where we can start. Then down here is another. As you can see, there is multiple border crossings. There's one right here. And then we can also look down here. There's a big border crossing. And we want a big border crossing because we're going to be moving a lot of cargo in and out as we start. And we also have some hills for resources, and we have a pretty nice flat area that's right after that. And then also we can start here on this peninsula, where we have a big border crossing as well. We have some hills for rocks, and we have a pretty large flat area. But I think we're going to actually start up here, and for a simple reason. So yes, we're kind of limited by space up here, but if you look at the map, there's this whole area that we can go to. If we start down here, we're going to have to go through this hill or around or all sorts of difficult terrain that's going to be expensive to build around. And down here, it's a similar problem. We're going to have to build around these rivers. The other advantage that we have up here is that we have a western checkpoint. In workers and resources, you can either trade with the east, marked by the star, or you can trade with the west, marked by the NATO-ish symbol. And the advantage of this area is that we have both of those borders right on top of each other. So I think that's where we should start. And since we are building a Soviet Republic, we have a planned economy. So we should set a plan for ourselves. So for this first episode, keep in mind the game, especially when you're playing on realistic, which we are, the start is pretty slow. So my goal for this first episode is to set up some basic infrastructure, have some basic resource extraction, and maybe a farm and maybe a small settlement. So let's get started by placing down some roads. And I think I'm going to start this way. So we have a straight road this way, and then I'm going to sort of curve it around here. Like so. And that should do it. And you see it's a plan. So that's marked by this drawn graphic. So I click here and that starts the construction. The problem is that we don't have any way to build it yet because we're on realistic. So we have to build everything ourselves. So I'm going to place down a dirt road sort of alongside right here. And I don't want them to run in parallel. So it's going to be a little bit weird, but that's okay. So dirt roads are built right away, and we can use them right away. And we're just going to put some connections up here like so. And next, we're going to need a construction office. And a lot of the basic buildings that you need, you can build for free, actually. But there's a limited number, so I think we can build only... Yeah, you can see we can build only 7 of these. And we're going to build 2 of these. And we're going to set the... So you have to set the source building for all the resources needs. And we're going to set that to the border crossing for now. And we're going to copy that to the other one. Now we need to buy some vehicles. And we will need... And actually, let me increase the range. So it's going to look for buildings to build within 3.5 kilometers. And let me do the same thing over here. Now we need some vehicles. And where are we going to need? We're going to need a bus. So let's filter by buses to transport workers. And I think I'm going to go with this one. And we're going to need some dump trucks for now. Let's go with the Tatra and let's buy 3 of those. So that's this construction office full. Then we are going to need a paver for paving roads. So workers can actually pave roads manually, but having a paver actually speeds it up tremendously. And we want a roller, and we will want a covered hull truck to transport components, and we want an open hull truck to transport steel and other bulk materials. And we also want to click this, which will speed up the delivery. So what this is going to do, some vehicles, and let me unpause so vehicles can start moving. So Some vehicles, like the roller and the paver, they're slow. You can see that it's very slow. So this means that it's gonna get loaded up on a open hull truck to be moved to the construction site. And that's gonna speed it up a little bit. So we're gonna let these guys build the roads, and I'm gonna set up some other buildings in the meantime. So what other buildings we want? We want to start setting up some industrial buildings. And the easiest thing we can get in from the start is gravel. And we actually need gravel for a whole lot of things. Pretty much every building in the game requires gravel, and a lot of the industries require gravel as well. So we're going to build a gravel quarry, and we're going to build the bigger one because it has a conveyor output. And we are going to place it somewhere in here. You see these rocky areas? That's where there is gravel. And since we're going to place the processor facility somewhere down here, we want that conveyor to point sort of that way. And we are going to find 45% quality of source. That's pretty good. We really don't need more than that. So let's place that. And now let's place a gravel processing plant. So we can build a small one, but as you can see, it only has conveyor outputs. And since we have a conveyor output from the quarry, we want the processing plant to have a conveyor input. So we are actually going to build the big one. And we are going to place it... We could do it like this. But I think we should do it like this. Then again, if we go like this, that gives us a little more room to maneuver for building other buildings that we will need with this. So let's do that actually. Let's build it this way. And now we have to connect this whole thing with roads. Because unless the building has a connection to a road, we can't actually start building it. So let's build a road right here. And the quarry doesn't really need a proper road, so we can just build a mud road, like so. And just link that up into this one, like that. Very good. So that gives us some very basic gravel processing, which is what we're going to need. Then we're also going to need a place to store all that gravel. So we're going to build a small gravel storage. That's going to also allow us to load trucks faster. So let's build that right here so it's pretty close, like so. And that actually leaves us with a couple gravel outputs if we need them from the quarry itself. And this place, we might actually use this area here for a warehouse in the future, or over here, but that's a plan for next time. Now we need a concrete and asphalt plant, because we need those to be manufactured for us. And we're going to have to take some care with placing these. And I think we can go like so. No, we can't, because it's blocked by the road, and that's too close. And that won't work with the conveyor. But look what we can do. And that's actually going to place a sidewalk, and you will understand why that is important when we actually start building it. So when you press T, it actually gives you a mirror of the same building. So you see I have it this way, and I mirror, it goes the other way, which is useful when you need to fit certain things together. And we can build that actually pretty close, like so. And now we just connect the whole thing with roads. Like that. Now the problem is that this processing plant and these two manufacturing buildings, they need workers to manufacture. So we need to find a way to bring workers there once they're built. And what I think we're actually going to do is build a bus stop. We just kind of have to figure out where would be a good place to do that. Because people are only willing to walk so far. And we can actually build a free bus stop if we need to. So right here would actually work for a bus stop. Because you see that everything is in walking distance from here. Ideally, I would actually want to place the bus stop sort of in here, but we would kind of be wasting some material there. So that's my fault. We could have placed that bus stop first. Or we can, you know, have it in here and the bus is gonna make a turn when it drops off people. Or we could actually build it. We can't. Now, why don't I just build it alongside? So you see we have these train tracks here. So that's eventually going to extend all the way through here. So I'm going to have to move these construction offices eventually. But right now, that's not a big deal. So I think I'm actually going to fix my mistake here and place the bus stop in here. And I'm going to go with a permanent bus stop because we're actually going to use it in the future. Just have to align it properly. There we go, perfect. And let me link up these roads right here. And why am I putting all of these roads that connect the temporary dirt road with the roads I'm building? So it gives the construction offices more access. So they can start delivering goods in parallel to the different buildings that are being built in the different roads, which is going to speed up construction significantly. You see we have workers there that were moving gravel. I think I'm actually going to build another free construction office just to actually get some excavators. That's going to speed up some operations with gravel and other aggregates. Let me get 2 of those. So you see right here that we have workers delivering the gravel. But if we buy an excavator, that's going to happen automatically and it's going to speed the whole thing up, which is what we want. And we are also going to need some concrete mixers for when we start building. And of course the good old Tatra. So we're going to let that build for a little bit. And you can see what I said, that now they're building all 3 of these roads at once. And that's going to speed it up. And here you see that there are no workers on the construction site, but there is the excavator. So it's actually being built at a very nice speed. But now it's waiting for more gravel. And the reason we want to set gravel production up is because loading cargo at the border checkpoint takes a very long time compared to how fast it can load at the storage. So eventually we will want to build a warehouse where we will have different goods we need for construction. That's why we're also building a cement plant and an asphalt plant. So we can build these things or make these things within our republic. That's progressing nicely. So let's let that build and then we can start building other stuff. And we can actually build a footpath. Let's build a footpath from the bus stop to the concrete plant or to the gravel plant. So why are footpaths and walking distance so important? So obviously we're playing a Soviet Republic, right? So not everyone or almost no one has a car. So people only get to places by walking or by taking public transport. That's why pedestrianism and public transit are very important in this game. And we're going to be setting up transit systems in future episodes. And while this is building, we can start thinking about where we want to build other things. So we will need to build a small settlement right here to get some basic workers to fuel other construction projects. And later on, we're going to build a bigger city on this big area and have some access to the sea here, which is also very important. Also, as you can see, we are losing money because we're importing a lot of goods. We're also importing workers right now because we have no population of our own. So eventually we're going to have to start thinking about balancing the budget. And a good early way to do it is exporting crops. So we're going to want to build a farm. And since we're going to be building a settlement in here, we can probably build a farm around these areas. Farms can be mostly automated and they don't need workers. So it's a good way to get started. And now we have these 2 roads done. So we're actually going to remove these parts. So we can actually refocus this area properly and sort of force the vehicles to use the faster route. And I'm just gonna build an extra one just to be sure, so I can very quickly just add more vehicles when I need to. And since vehicle management and building management is a very important part of the game actually gives us tools to reassign all the vehicles in a building to a different building, which is especially useful for when you're changing assignments like I am, where I am moving out all the vehicles to a different depot. And now they're gonna start building again, and we can actually go and demolish this. I'm not sure why are they using the dirt roads to... Oh, I guess because they're trying to get all the way there. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna leave that intersection in, just so they can get to these construction sites up here. But we're gonna have the railway sort of running through here, and up here I'm gonna make it run alongside the road. And we're gonna straighten out the road a little bit in here. So we can actually plan that out with a dirt road for now. And let's give that a nice curve, like so. And down here I would put the farm. And somewhere in here is gonna be our settlement. So we can actually extend this, and we're gonna use this road as sort of a guide for when we're building that. And now why are we putting all of this in this one cluster around the bus stop? Like I said, everything has to be walking distance. So as we bus in workers from the village to the stop here, everything has to be near it. And up here we're going to put some logging industries, which actually reminds me that we should probably plant some more trees in there. We're going to plant some spruce. Kind of looks like what's planted in there. And there is some research later on that we can do that's going to do this automatically. But for now, while we're waiting for all the things to be built, we can actually plant some spruce, and that's going to grow into a nice forest for when we need it later. But right now it looks like construction on our roads is going really well. So let's start preparing for our farm. So for starters, we're going to build a small farm. Don't need anything bigger really. And we're going to build that. Yeah, let's build that right here. Let's connect that up with a proper road. And we don't really... I think we can just go straight like that. Approve. Then we're also going to need some storage for grain. So we can build a silo, or we can actually build a warehouse. But the warehouses store less crops on a bigger space. So we're going to build a small silo. 800 tons of grain, that's more than enough. So we can just go ahead and build that right there. And that's going to build over time. Then we probably want to set up some gravel roads. And we're going to use gravel roads for speed when accessing fields. So we're going to build one like so. And another one, oh, that's not good, too close. And another one like so. And that's going to give us access to fields. And why am I using gravel roads over dirt roads for fields? As you build more fields, the distances actually do become quite long. So you want to be using a gravel or an asphalt road if you can, just to speed things up a little bit. And we're actually going to suspend construction on this, because we don't want to be building all of this yet. We want to focus on building up this whole area first. And now actually let me place some fields. And I think we're going to go with medium fields for this, because we can get 2 in there quite comfortably, because the small fields are very small, as you can see. So we could do that as well, but I would rather go with bigger fields because they have better yields and so on. And as we are building more of those connecting roads, we can add more fields. And what a lot of people don't know is that you can actually build fields over hills and such. So you see here, that is actually going to adapt to the surface that's underneath it. So that allows you to use some less than good terrain. Looks like we're working on the bus stop, which is very nice. Which means that I can actually probably build another building, which is a vehicle depot. And again, we can build a free one. And we're gonna buy a small bus. We're gonna buy a small... Oh, we can't buy a small bus because it's not... Like, this road is not finished. So we can't buy vehicles for this one. But that's okay. I think we can now actually let me wait. Let me hold off on that. But you can see that our gravel storage is being built up, which is very good. And that's done. So we can actually go ahead and demolish this road right here because we don't need it anymore. But we want to keep this one so we can actually still access these buildings while the rest of this is being built up. And once that bus stop is complete, because we can't pass through it, once that's complete, we're going to delete this part and start paving over this part. Or I might actually finish building this part first and then look into building a settlement, just so we can get some income going as soon as we can. And let me actually set up that road construction. And we can unsuspend this, because we have basically one entire construction office dedicated only to paving over roads. So if we have no roads to pave, those machines are just gonna sit there and do nothing. And I think eventually we will want to build a big construction or bigger construction office in this area. And we're probably gonna go with the biggest one possible. It is expensive, but it fits a lot of vehicles and we're gonna need that to build up that bigger city right here. Alright, so let's give these guys a little bit of time to get building. Okay, so all our roads are almost done, and work is continuing on our gravel storages, but we are a little bit behind on building this bus stop. And I'm wondering what's the problem there. Could be that I prioritized the gravel quarries and the gravel processing plant. As you can see, I have high priority set. So maybe they're ignoring the bus stop for now. So I'm gonna try and fix that, because we only have like 7 work days left on getting this done. Which might actually be a good opportunity to buy some more vehicles that we're gonna need. So I am actually gonna buy a crane just to help the workers lift items while they're building. And I think I'm gonna buy another open hull just to help with carrying resources back and forth. And you can see that the crane is already on its way to be used somewhere. And what these do, they improve productivity on construction sites where they can be used. While it's not gonna do anything on its own, like the paver or the roller, it's gonna sit there and it's gonna help the workers build. Once we have some workers in there, of course. But yeah, it looks like we have this road here being worked on, which is very good. And you can see that our trees are starting to grow. So we'll be able to start wood production over here hopefully soon. First, we're gonna have to move all these construction offices and we're gonna build a big one right here, I think. So let's let that build for a little bit. So it looks like our quarry is almost done, which is really good. So what we're going to do is we're going to reduce the number of workers to 0, because we don't want workers to be working here. Because workers, when they try to mine manually, the output is pretty low. Instead, we're just going to buy an excavator right here. And one should do it for now. So let's leave it at that. And you see we have some quarried stone already, but the conveyor is not ready and the gravel processor is not ready. And I'm not entirely sure why it's building the lower priority sites first. Oh, but it looks like the bus stop is done, which is really good. And we're just going to toggle this off for now. And we can delete all of these then, which is very nice. And we're going to leave this one in until we start putting in buildings around here for the little village that's going to be here. And looks like there's finally going to be some work getting done here. Very nice. But we still have almost 1,000 work days left. And a lot of resources that need to be delivered. And this path is still under construction as well. But that's going to get worked on once this building is done. Yeah, but looks like we have some road paving going on. Very nice. And keep in mind, we're going to have the railway going along the road here. So we want to keep a little bit of a gap between the road and anything that we're building. And I just have to say, I really love the soundtrack of this game. So hopefully while I'm editing this, I'll be able to leave the game audio with the soundtrack as intact as I can. I promise to try my best, but you know how I record. So there might be a few cuts here and there, and by a few I mean a lot. Those of you who have been watching my other channel know that I'm used to doing very scripted videos, so kind of improvising as I'm playing is a little bit of a new concept for me. But so far I am having a lot of fun, even though I'm actually recording this a second time, because the first attempt, the actual gameplay recording got corrupted, and I didn't actually get anything. So this road is already done, and once it is, what I'm going to do is build the big construction office right here. And that will allow us to move all of these over here. I'm probably going to leave the vehicle depot in there for now, because we don't really need more than that. I might move it as well, because it's a free one. So I might put it actually in here. Or, now that I'm looking at it, careful not to remove that road, but we could actually fit it in here into this gap, and that would actually work out very nicely. There, and we have a four-way intersection, and we have a vehicle depot right there. And this is still gonna take a long time, and I would very much like to get this crane out of here and have it put to work on this just to speed it up, because we don't really need the storage right now. We mostly need that. So I think I'm gonna send that crane over there, and hopefully that's gonna speed things up with building. Oh, there we go. You see how much that's sped up? And you can actually buy big cranes as well, but you have to kind of buy them at the customs. And you see how many more vehicles I can actually buy here. And I can buy a tower crane. These actually have a much bigger speed boost for building. So what we could do is buy one of these and actually have it shipped, because you kind of have to have an open truck and ship that crane to a construction office. So we're not going to do that now. We're going to do that once we have the big construction office with more vehicles that we can spare. Because right now we need that open truck to be transporting steel and concrete panels for construction elsewhere. But what we can do now is we can buy a small bus. And I think, yeah, let's do 8 passengers. And what we're going to use that for is we're going to be busing in workers over here or to this bus stop so they can work in the gravel processing plant. Since we don't have any workers of our own, we have to bus in foreign workers until we get that set up. So let me actually set up that bus line. So they're going to go here, they're going to load up workers, they're not going to unload anything, they're going to go to, and we're going to unload here, they're not going to load anybody, and they're just going to unload everyone, but we can unselect it so it's a little bit clearer, and go. And that bus is now going to go and just keep busing people to that bus stop, which is what we need. And work is being done right here, and work is being done here as well. I kind of feel like we might need that crane, actually. I know I said like 2 minutes ago that we're not going to need it now, but yeah. I'm going to go buy a crane because it's going to be pretty useful for us. So we need an open truck to carry it. And this one carries 8 tons. And we know that the crane weighs 7 tons. So that's perfect. So we need a tower crane. And we're going to buy the Czechoslovak one. I'm actually surprised that these things are still in use, apparently. But I figure, you know, a tower crane is a tower crane. So let's buy that. It's pretty expensive, but, well, what can you do? And what we're going to do is come here and load vehicles. Oh, wait, no. Load vehicles. And go here and unload vehicles. And launch. And obviously I could build the smaller construction office with 16 places. But I'm just going to buy the big one with 24 so that we have some room for additional vehicles once we need them. And there we go. And change the depot to that place. And you see that it's already moving that tower crane to this construction site just to speed things along. And you see just how much faster that is. And you can actually see the tower crane in there, which is very cool. And our gravel storage is already good to go. So I'm just going to set this to store gravel only, just in case. And lots of work is being done, which is very good. And what that small bus is actually doing for us right now is that if you just take workers to a bus stop and there are construction sites available around it, they'll just go to that construction site and start doing work. So that's sort of passively helping us get other buildings built. Obviously, you get the most work done by actually bringing in workers and doing the work, but this is the best we can do right now. And we're going to reduce the number of workers here. I think we only need 5 just to get things going. And also we don't have the conveyor done yet. So we should probably increase the priority on that. And also on the one to the storage. And then we probably want to build that footpath as well. The interesting part is that it says that there is no road connection, which is kind of weird, but I think I know what's the problem. So it's an asphalt footpath, and I think what it's missing, it needs something like that as a connection point to a road so the construction vehicles can get to it. Yeah, yep, that's what it looks like. But you can see that now the asphalt plant is being built, but first we have to make sure the conveyors are done. And that's already being worked on. And now that this path is finished... Oh, it's actually still not assigned to a construction office. Or is it not finished? Oh, it's not finished yet. Okay. And you can build different kinds of footpaths, and you can see that they have different bonuses for walking speed. And the better the walking speed bonus, the further workers will be able to walk. So by building better footpaths, you can actually increase the distance that they can travel. And you can use different other overpasses and different structures for pedestrians to be using. You can actually build metro in this game as well, and I haven't done that outside of the tutorial. So I think I might look into building a metro system instead of a tram system in the main city, but that's for the future. And our gravel plant is now connected and we are producing gravel. But our conveyor is not yet complete, but it soon will be. And that's going to start moving stuff into the concrete storage or the gravel storage. And there we go. So what we can do now is we can actually, if I open up the supply menu of the construction office, you see that it's assigned to the customs house. So what I can do now is assign this to our concrete production so we no longer have to get concrete outside of the country. And we can copy that to every other construction office now. And you will now see that our trucks are coming in here to fill up on gravel. And it's a little bit faster than going to the border. And it's way closer to where we actually need this. And with that, we're almost done building the asphalt plant, which is also very good. So I'm going to start construction on the big construction office as well. So it's very expensive, but you see we have room for 24 vehicles, so we're going to have a lot of room. So we're going to put that right here. Actually, I'm going to give myself a little bit of room, and you will see why. So one of the major ways of automating distribution, or well, of getting resources where they need to go, are distribution offices. And these allow you to assign tasks to vehicles to keep supplies of certain things where they need to be. And what we're going to do is we're going to have, well, first we have to build this conveyor here. What we're going to have them do is we are going to have them deliver bitumen to this asphalt plant so we can start making asphalt. And for that, we're going to need an oil truck. And we can probably, I'm looking at the one that's the fastest. Yeah, that works. And this is going to be our construction distribution. And we can rename buildings to make it easier. So we're going to rename that. And now we can assign some tasks. So we want them to load at the customs house. And we want them to unload bitumen at this asphalt plant. And we can define what's the storage amount that we want kept. And we're gonna raise this to 80% because this is gonna run out fast. I think it's gonna start filling gravel once we actually start manufacturing, but we will see that in a minute. And you can see that we can only store half a ton of asphalt at once because it's a, I don't want to say perishable commodity, but it's something that needs to be made at the time of use. So we can now actually repoint our construction offices to there, and that's going to save us a little bit of money. So the other thing I would like to have built, and I kind of want to have it here, where I'm going to have the lumber industry, is going to be a open resource storage, where we're going to have bricks, wood boards, that kind of stuff, just so we don't have to go get it at the customs house. But for that, I guess we're going to have to wait for this construction office to be done. But work is being done on the concrete plant now, which is really good. And this is why you want to mostly be building your own construction industry and generally your own resource manufacturing, so you can speed things up. And obviously let me know in the comments if you would like me to cut this down a little bit. Right now, while I'm recording this, I'm aiming kind of for a 45 to 60 minute episode. But if you would like me to cut it down a little bit, I can certainly try and do that. So let me know. And over here, we can start thinking about our settlement. First, we need to consider the needs of the people. So I think I'm going to go with some brick houses, and I quite possibly might go with these low quality ones. So lower quality housing does decrease morale, but it is a lot cheaper. But I'm looking at these and they actually have good quality and are pretty cheap, but they only house 10 workers, which is not really enough. We're probably going to want to have room for at least 100 people, but we also have to kind of consider that we have to fulfill some needs for our people. And that's going to be food, and food is kind of split into two things, food and meat. And then we also have alcohol. And then they also want some entertainment, some sports, and they will also need a school for their kids, and they will need a doctor. So I think we're going to start by building out that sort of central area of the town where all these services are going to be, and that's going to be right here. And we're going to kind of place all the buildings in a sort of a block around it, which is how you actually get to the block-based construction you see in a lot of former Soviet bloc cities. Because they would build these sort of city districts that are very self-sustaining. You have all the schools, all the medical stuff, and then if you need to go somewhere else for some reason, you take the public transport and you go there. Whether it's in the town center, or it's in a different block, different district, or if it's in another town altogether. So I think we're going to start by placing a small shopping center. That gives us the food needs, and people also need clothes and they want electronics. So that gives us all of that in one package, basically, for a pretty reasonable price, rather than having to build two buildings. So we're going to start by placing that. I think I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to leave myself a little bit of room there in case we want to put storage here for extra stuff, but I don't think we're going to need that. Then we're going to want to build we could probably do an alcohol kiosk instead of a pub, but every person who has grown up around here knows that every village needs a pub, and that's how you recognize this town center. There's the shopping, or the store, the pub, and the church. That's how you know the center of the village. So we're going to put that there. Then these guys are also going to need a doctor. So we're going to build a small clinic. Now that was a feature of usually bigger towns, where they would have multiple of these small clinics, but since this is the first settlement we have, we're just going to build that right there. Then they will also need some places to put their kids while they're at work, because we chose that complex education simulation. So we have to build kindergartens, schools, and then we have to also build universities. But for now, all we need is a small kindergarten, and that only has sidewalks, so we can kind of put it right here. And actually, I'm going to make a little gap so I can put a road through here. And we are also going to need a proper school. And we only really need a small one. And that only, again, has a sidewalk entrance. So we're going to put that in there. And we are actually going to put a medium-sized playground right there. Okay, that might actually be the big one. Yeah, like a medium-sized playground. Now, what else do we need? People will want entertainment, and they want sports. So a cinema is a bit expensive at this stage. We could build a house of culture. These are actually very popular. Around where I grew up, every town has a house of culture. And usually think of it as a theater, like a small theater, plus a cinema, plus a gallery, plus some kind of other, social space that you can use. But for this one, I think I was kind of thinking we might want to build an amphitheater, but I'm actually looking at it now and it's pretty expensive and it takes a long time to get working, but it can accommodate more people. Then again, it might actually be cheaper to do the amphitheater. So let's do that. Let's put that right there. So there's rough terrain. So we can't unless I try to put it like very close. Need to wait for an excavator. Or I could just, put it in here. But I want to leave that area empty so I can put storage behind the store if I need to. But we can look at what we can do in terms of sports. And I think I might go with let's see, we can do a football field. It's pretty cheap. Lots of people and many villages have a football field, so that's definitely a possibility. And I think we should put it maybe here, but again, can't because we don't have an excavator available. I think all of them are working on the roads here and stuff. And we might be actually able to put the football field right here. So it's like more central, let's say. And we still need a place for the amphitheater. And we could actually sort of have these things in one place. But then we have to be very careful about where we build afterwards. So I think here might be a better place to go about it. And let's build it this way. And that's basically our core infrastructure for a town. And obviously we kind of have to do one more thing, which is we have to put the Soviet emblem at the entrance. But I don't think I'm going to go with the most expensive one, because that's like 11 tons of steel. So we're going to do this one. It gives us less influence, but you kind of need to have this at the entrance to the town. And basically we're just going to build out streets around this with housing and such. But we will also need to build a small warehouse right here for just getting in all those items for the store and just having a place to put them as we import them. And all that work is being done, and our concrete plant is ready to go. So we're going to add this, and now our distribution office is actually going to start supplying concrete or cement to our concrete factory. Construction offices, and now we're producing gravel, asphalt, and concrete within the country. Obviously, we're missing some of the raw resources because we can't produce cement, we can't produce bitumen right now, but we're buying these things for a lot less, and we're manufacturing them a lot faster. And once we have that farm, we can start growing crops, and we can actually start looking into exporting some of them. And eventually, depending on how well it goes, I might build a small food factory in this town and sort of get our basic production going, at least. Or we can look into starting a very small scale meat production, but again, very expensive, so we might want to start looking into balancing the budget a little bit. Because right now we're spending 20-ish thousand rubles a month just on building materials and manpower. So we're going to want to reduce the manpower at least, and we're going to try to reduce the resources as best as we can. Oh, and I forgot that we will want to build a bus stop in here somewhere. And that's actually kind of complicated now. So let's see what I can do. And we could do a bus platform, like a small one, but I don't think we need that. So a bus stop, and I was hoping I would be able to build it right here. There we go. That's actually really good. Because what we're gonna do, we're gonna send some workers to that bus stop, and then the construction offices can employ those people. Now that I'm actually looking at it, it looks like we might have managed to build everything close enough so that if I build a house right here, it's actually going to be close enough to work in all of these buildings without actually having to use the bus. But I think I still might have that in there just in case I need to. I mean, ideally, I think we would have one road sort of heading this way, and then I would have one sort of right here. Actually, let me see if I can get that done. Let's actually do a grid, even though I'm 90% sure I'm not gonna use all that space. But we can put more service buildings in here. We're gonna have some housing sort of around here and around here. We could actually put some housing in here as well if we wanted to. But we're gonna start here, I think. But anyway, we have to wait for all of these to be built, and we will have to supply them. I'm gonna call this the local supply. And naming buildings is very important, especially once you start building more cities and building more complicated systems. You will definitely appreciate the ability to do that. Okay, so our construction office is now complete. So we're gonna do a couple things. We're gonna copy the settings, and we are going to increase the range. Then we're going to send over all the vehicles. And with that done, we can demolish all 4 of these. And now we can start building some lumber industry. So I'm going to want to have a small open storage here. Like so. And right next to that, I am going to want to build a sawmill. Like so. And next to that, a wood cutting post. Like so. And for these, we might actually have to bus people over, or we can pull a sneaky one. We can extend our road right here, and that's going to link everything up for us. And actually, I'm going to put a higher priority on this open storage here. What I'm going to do is have our construction import office, I'm going to add a flatbed truck in there, and I'm going to have those guys import all our steel and bricks and concrete panels just to speed construction up down the line. So I might need to build another import office. And again, I'm going to do a free distribution office. Can go right here, and these guys are going to be importing fertilizer. We're going to need fertilizer for farming, as it increases the fertility of fields, and we're going to need that if we're going to grow enough crops to actually sell. And now the farm is done, so we can start importing some fertilizer. I actually want to load and right there. And let's keep it at 50% stock. Now the fields have been found automatically, which is very good. And we need to buy some vehicles. Let's buy some tractors. Let's buy some covered hulls. And let's buy some combines. And that should basically cover all our farming needs. We're just gonna lower this because as we're farming, the fertility of the field actually increases. And that's our basic crop production secured, and we can see our combines and tractors on their way. Very nice. A little bit of a traffic jam forming, but that's okay. And our open storage is good to go, so we can start importing some materials. And we're gonna actually limit the amount of different resources we can have on here. And let's set up our construction import. And we want an open truck. And we want to be importing steel, prefab panels, bricks, and for now also boards. And obviously cement and bitumen. And we can assign our construction office to be pulling resources from here. And we will actually have to do this one by one. And eventually we might be able to actually switch the electrical and mechanical components as well once we build a warehouse. And our sawmill is now complete. We're going to decrease the number of workers because we don't actually need that many people. But this is actually going to start making wooden boards for us, which is another resource that we need and that we were buying for construction. As soon as we have some workers arrive, that is. And we see a couple guys heading this way. And there we go. One guy went in, and he's now making boards, and those are going to start showing up in here momentarily. Actually, no. There is no factory connection. So these things are factory connections. So if you build a factory or like two buildings next to each other, you can connect them with these, and that's like an instant transfer of resources, which is very, very useful. So we have managed to set up the production of some basic construction resources right here, and we have a blueprint ready for our first settlement. And we also have a farm that will soon be ready for harvest, and that will be able to export since we don't need the crops right now, and that's going to help us balance the budget a little bit. We still have over 3 million rubles, which is pretty good given how much we're losing for materials and manpower right now, and that should start going down as we are progressing, as we're building more industries. But I think that's going to be a pretty good first episode. We will see how long the cut is going to be. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the second episode where we actually start to build out this little village or this little town right here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.